What's up, you guys? Yellow Hawk here, as always, bringing weekly anime manga reviews, and I'm here with another video. So today we're going to be talking about, actually, Hinami from Tokyo Ghoul. I haven't made a Tokyo Ghoul video in quite some time. Not necessarily because I lost interest in TG, just mainly due to the fact that I haven't really thought about it, and I've been busy. It's kind of weird, because a lot of times time flies, and then, like, I look at my channel, I'm like, damn, I haven't talked about this in a really long time. So yeah, I would like to go back to actually making a lot of the Tokyo Ghoul videos I originally had planned, especially looking at my folder now, where I have a lot of thumbnails I made for Tokyo Ghoul characters that I ended up not discussing for some reason. Either way, this week's video is actually going to be me talking about Hinami Fuguchi from Tokyo Ghoul, obviously, and her overall nature within the Tokyo Ghoul story. Because when it comes to Hinami, and the way how she's been presented throughout Tokyo Ghoul, it's really odd, because out of all the ghouls that we come across in TG, she might be the most gentle one in the entirety of the story, at least when it comes to the ones that are, like, I guess, somewhat combatant. Because, like, you have characters like Ichika, obviously, who's obviously not a fighter, she's a freaking 5-year-old, and you also have, like, some of the little children that we see throughout TG, but when it comes to, like, the main cast, Hinami's definitely probably one of the most innocent, and a lot of things happen to her that you kind of sit there and think, you're like, damn, I wish that didn't happen to Hinami, and it's unfortunate that a lot of these things ended up happening to her, especially when you look at how kind she is in comparison to everybody else in the story. So, yeah, let's talk about Hinami. So, Hinami in TG is actually one of my favorite characters in Tokyo Ghoul, and also probably one of the most underrated, I feel like, in TG, because when it comes to her development in Tokyo Ghoul, I feel like a lot of people don't bring it up, despite her having probably one of the most interesting character changes throughout the course of the story, that's subtly built up throughout the course of Tokyo Ghoul Part 1 and is really slammed down in Tokyo Ghoul Part 2 when it comes to her eventually joining Aogiri. Now, one thing I do want to bring up about all of this is the fact that I feel like when it comes to Hinami and her change as a character, as well as a lot of other people in Tokyo Ghoul, I really do enjoy the fact that Sui Shida took a lot of time in order to develop her as an overall character and help her grow, instead of just having Hinami just transform and it's like an instant thing that either happened completely off screen or something that we didn't get a whole lot of built up and happening. Hinami, I would chuck in with characters like Toka and Mutsuki, and even Akira, for all three of them, or all four of them, having like these kind of developing changes that are kind of thrown throughout the story very subtly and don't have a whole lot of emphasis on. I would probably say out of all of them, maybe Akira's has the most screen, or like screen time for. Some people might be surprised and be like, oh, why aren't you saying Toka? But Toka's is, it's there, but I feel like because you see it all, like, because it's there in front of your face, a lot of people tend to miss it, which is really weird. Same reason why a lot of people are like, oh, why doesn't Toka do Bliss, this, and this in Tokyo Ghoul Re? It's because she became a lot more human throughout the course of Tokyo Ghoul Part 1 and Part 2. But when it comes to Hinami, she ended up diving herself into the ghoul world, and despite all the hardships that she ended up coming across, she never really blamed the world around her, which I always found very interesting, because you look at the way how a lot of characters in Tokyo Ghoul stand, they always blame the world. They always blame the world or the circumstances that they're thrown in for the reason why they ended up becoming the way how they are. Mutsuki blames the circumstances that she was thrown in for the fact that she's a psychopath. You have Kaneki, Akira, Toka, and even Amon all blame the world for them being thrown in the circumstances that they've been put in, or even them becoming the way how they have ended up becoming throughout the course of the story. But Hinami usually takes all that responsibility on herself, or she simply doesn't blame anybody throughout the course of the story, even people who caused her some of the most pain in her entire life, like Koreo Mato. Whereas where we see during the events of the second and third volume of Tokyo Ghoul, he is hunting after her, and he even killed her own mother. Toka ends up going on a whole entire vengeance about wanting to avenge Hinami's mom and make sure that Hinami is able to walk around safely by taking all of the investigators who happen to be there that day's lives, or the investigators that happen to be somewhat involved. But Hinami, when she ends up confronting Mado later on at the end of the volume 3, she actually admits to Toka that she didn't want Toka to do that. In reality, all she really wanted was just that she wanted her mom back, and she wanted to be able to hold her mom once again. But unfortunately, that's not possible, especially with the circumstances where they're at, where Hinami's mom is dead, and her Kakaho was also transformed into a Quinque. So the closest resemblance that she has to her mom that's currently still, I guess, somewhat around is the Quinque that Mado is trying to use against her, which is really messed up. And I guess it kind of ties into the whole entire similarities between Toka and Hinami, where Arima kind of did something similar with Toka's mother, and that Quinque was being used in order to kill Yomo, Ayato, and Toka during the events of the Cochlea arc. So, yeah. Now, despite all of this, one of the interesting things about Hinami that I've brought up in the past, mainly on my old channel, is the fact that Hinami is actually one of the driving forces for the Tokyo Ghoul plot in several different occasions. You have where she has 2 arcs that are mainly centered completely around her, or either they're centered around her, or the fact that she's kind of the driving force for a lot of events to happen, and that is both Hinami's arc with Greo Mado and Amon both being introduced, or the arc that happens later on within the span of Tokyo Ghoul Re, the Cochlea arc, where Kaneki actually goes out of his way in order to save Hinami and have her be freed from the prison. Obviously, there's other characters that were involved, like Toka and the rest of the Kirishima bloodline, but it was mainly the fact that Hinami was coming very close to her execution date, as well as the fact that her being in the circumstances of the prison for so many months on end simply isn't good for a lot of other people in the Tokyo Ghoul world, especially coming from the fact that so many people in TG really do care about her. For example, Ayato, Toka, Yomo, Kaneki, etc. Of course, they would want to end up saving her. Now, in the case with Kaneki, it was a little bit of a tricky situation because we didn't really know exactly what Black Reaper had planned at the time. In a lot of different ways, it even looked like Black Reaper was more than likely willing to allow Hinami to end up dying, but that's kind of more of a debate for another day. In the anime version, it doesn't really come across this way, but in the manga version, it's left a little bit more ambiguous, and I kind of like that due to how badly Hinami was treated by Black Reaper Kaneki, where he didn't visit her for so many months on end. I forgot the exact number, I think it was like 6 months, if I'm not mistaken, but from the span of the Rosewald arc all the way up to the Cochlea arc, he didn't visit her at all. It was actually mainly Ure who ended up visiting Hinami the most. And going back to what I was saying before, when Kaneki and Hinami end up interacting later on in the Tokyo Ghoul manga, when he finally frees her from the prison, or he's about to free her from the prison, I really do like that Hinami actually slaps Kaneki in that scene. And even though she is very happy at the fact of what Kaneki is doing at the moment, she was still upset with him for everything that he's done prior, or everything he didn't do prior, more on the lines, which is something that I really do like, because it shows the fact that Hinami isn't just like some blind and really layerless character who is willing to just allow all types of abuse for Kaneki have done to her just go by without any type of repercussions afterwards. It's something that I really do like, because in too many anime do we get protagonists, female protagonists that are like that, who simply put up with what the main male character will do to them, and they won't really say much about it, or if there is a subplot with that, it's kind of dropped relatively quickly. Hinami obviously doesn't hold any type of really major hostility towards Kaneki. She still does love him, and everything that she's done up until the point of Tokyo Ghoul Re has been for him, but I really do like that she, in that instance, was actually willing to kind of somewhat fight back against Kaneki and tell him off over something that he did that was clearly morally wrong, which I really did like. Now, I should probably tie this back into one instance with Hinami's character that I feel like was kind of thrown under the rug, but like I said before, it's one of the main character development traits of her that I feel like has been proved upon time and time again on something that I feel like it was always very subtle, and it kind of ties back into Hinami's feelings towards Kaneki and Toka, the fact that she has a high respect and love for both of them. Now, in Kaneki's case, it's been heavily debated in the Tokyo Ghoul fandom on the way how Hinami looks at Kaneki, whether it is more on a brother-sister type way on the way how she sees him, or if it's more on the lines of initially romantic until Ayato came along. We don't really know, and I feel like you can't really say unless if you ask Ashita himself, because statements in the manga as well as the anime kind of prove otherwise for both sides, but I'm not going to really get into that here. That's not what this video is about. But in part 1, Hinami kind of looked at herself as somebody that holds Kaneki and Toka back. Despite all of this, ironically, Hinami's probably one of the most useful assets for both Kaneki and Toka throughout the course of the story, mainly Kaneki because Toka, like I said before, was living a way more human lifestyle during the second half of Tokyo Ghoul as well as the first half of Tokyo Ghoul Re. Based off of her hearing, and her senses are just ridiculously high for a ghoul, where she's always just been showcased to be very, very useful. She's easily one of the most useful characters in the entirety of the series. But throughout the course of Tokyo Ghoul Part 1, when you have where Hinami talks with Eto, as well as some of the conversations that she's had with other characters that weren't Kaneki, she always felt like that she was holding them back. She always felt like that she was just a person that was always there that really needed to be protected, sort of like a damsel in distress. Now, Hinami goes out of her way to end up joining Aogiri during the events of the time skip, and seemingly, I would imagine during that time, due to her connection with Takasuki Sen, I wouldn't be surprised if she was one of the few characters in Aogiri that was actually aware of Eto's identity. Now, obviously, Eto did end up revealing herself to everybody in Aogiri during the events of the Cochlea arc, but I feel like her, along with Tatsura, Ayato, and maybe a handful of other people, probably knew that Eto and the One-Eyed Owl were the same person. That's what I think. But besides that, Hinami's jump in power is pretty ridiculous. Now, this isn't really necessarily a power scaling video of me just scaling Hinami from a combative standpoint. I want mainly for this to be, but I do feel like Hinami's jump in power is definitely something to bring up when it comes to terms of her development and her overall characterization, simply due to the fact that Hinami went from being a character that had a lot of potential as a Chimera Ghoul, who, when it comes to just outwardly, like how much power they can dish out, kind of like Psycho, she can dish out quite a bit, to an SS-rated ghoul who's actually considered enough of a threat where she's able to completely just kind of dismember Takizawa without much effort. Now, this is Takizawa without his Kakuja, and Kakuja Takizawa kind of proved that he's stronger than Hinami, which I don't have an issue with. But that's still pretty impressive, because, I mean, Heise was getting smacked around by that version of Taki, and it's kind of something that I feel like is a really big moment for Hinami as a character when it comes to her protecting herself for Heise during the events of the Auction Raid arc, and also her protecting herself in order to save Toka as well as the other ghouls who happened to be in trying to escape the 24th Ward when Suzuya came around. Because in both situations, it kind of somewhat parallels the way how Kaneki and Toka acted for her earlier on during the third volume of Tokyo Ghoul, Part 1, where Kaneki was willing to confront Amon in order to protect Hinami, as well as Toka being willing to confront Mado in order to protect Hinami. And I kind of really do like that, because you have where there's a lot of really good moments with Hinami where she is more than willing to sacrifice herself in a battle that she's not really sure that she's going to win. And in the case of Suzuya, it almost seemed like that she was willing to accept death just to be able to postpone, or like she was willing to die in order to just stall long enough where she can buy enough time for Toka and the others to escape, mainly Toka. And then you have a whole entire spiel where she's talking about Kaneki and Toka and how she's always watched them from behind, and all that she felt jealous of Toka being able to stand at like Kaneki's side. And at this point now, she's really happy to see them together and also be able to protect them in a situation like this, which I really did like. And it's a really emotional scene. And I really do like the way how it was demographed, even though Hinami at the end ended up getting saved by Kaneki, I don't really think it stops on her development, because it's not like she ended up becoming a damsel in distress after this. Even after this event, we do see, like, I think one other scene with Hinami during the events of, like, the war, where she is helping the, I guess the best way to put it is the Alliance, to find where the clowns are so they can take him out and stop the owl, the headless owl, from attacking the other members of CCG, which I really did like. So Hinami, I think from a characterization standpoint, is probably one of the best characters in all of TG. She's a phenomenally written character, and even if she ended up dying during the events of the Cochlea, or not the Cochlea arc, but the 24th Ward arc, I still feel like that her development would still be very, very good. And yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts on Hinami. Kind of a more quicker video, not as long as some of my other discussions, but this was kind of a video I wanted to do for a while that I just haven't had the chance to do. So anyways, thank you for watching. Remember, comment, subscribe as always, guys. Love you all. Hawk as always, signing out. And before I leave, though, if there's any other characters in TG you want me to talk about, or even any other characters in anime you would want me to, I guess, make a video and give my thoughts on, if there's enough thumbs up on them, or if I find the video interesting enough, I am willing to, or the suggestion is interesting enough, I am more than willing to make a discussion video / analysis on them. I'm thinking about doing it for Attack on Titan characters. I kind of want to do one for Eren soon, but I might wait for the next chapter to drop, because I think we're going to get some more reveals for Eren very soon. So anyways, thanks for watching. Remember, comment, subscribe as always, guys. I love you all. Hawk signing out. See you guys. Bye.